Hello my lovelies, welcome to my little cottage by the sea, the place where I like to stitch and craft my way to a vintage inspired and sustainable lifestyle. In today's video I want to share something with you that I am so super excited about. I've recently come into the possession of the 1938 edition of the Pictorial Guide to Modern Home Needlecraft. I've been looking for this particular edition for about 2 years now, and I found it for a bargainous price. I think I paid about £6 for it. It can be pretty spenny, so I'm absolutely thrilled. There is so much goodness in here that I thought that it was worth just sharing some of my favourite things in here and my thoughts about those things, and also some sort of possible sewing plans that are going to be inspired by what I'm finding in this book. So I have my spectacles, I have my cup of tea, so let's dive into 1938 and follow some advice from the Pictorial Guide to Home Needlecraft. So here we have the Pictorial Guide to Modern Home Needlecraft. The dust cover has gone, but how wonderful are the little logos and things here. All of this sort of graphics has inspired all of the graphics that I use through my products for Deighton Atelier and so on. And all of my stuff is vintage inspired. So even though I may not dress as a accurately 1930s, 40s, whatever, I am always vintage inspired. So love these end papers. The sort of pattern here, I'd actually love this on fabric, wouldn't it be amazing? And here we have little useful articles, it calls them, for which full working directions are given in the appropriate section of this book. So I also have the Pictorial Guide to Modern Home Dressmaking, which is from 1941, and that really just sort of covers clothing, but this sort of covers everything. And it's broken up into all these parts, so basic principles, sewing machine, dressmaking, tailoring, underwear, household and garment renovations, so really pre-war but make, do and mend, knitting and crochet. I also have the knitting book in this series as well from the 40s, embroidery, household furnishings. There is a fabulous, I will show you, tutorial to do loose covers. It's actually the best one I've ever found. And miscellaneous work, tassels. I really love some of the phrases in this. It's of its time. The aim of this book is for the little woman, the homemaker, the housewife, the mother, to be able to attend to her whole family's needs. And this book, it says here, to help the needlewoman make the most of all these advantages, this book has been compiled on a very practical basis so that the best can be got at the least cost. There are probably all sorts of other things in there that might be interesting. I haven't read through all of this. Lots of information about tools, lovely photos, really good instructive photos here actually. I always recommend to students to get older books, sort of pre-1985 sewing, dressmaking, instruction books. I've not really seen many modern books, and I mean modern after 1985, that are particularly useful, or I don't think they're as good. Anyway, so got all these sort of basic things, some correct fitting. Just love the layout of this book. Look at these fab little illustrations. This is a 1938 sleeve. I've got one on here, matching my roses. So we have information about the sewing machine, still a hand crank sewing machine rather than electrical, but really useful. How fab is that? Look, a dressing gown jacket, a quilted jacket. I wouldn't want to wear that in bed though. I'd just want to wear it all day and all the time. I think that's fantastic. So I've already had, like Alice in Wonderland, 6 good ideas before breakfast, because it is actually before breakfast here in my little cottage by the sea. Loads of just useful, very straightforward, very clearly written instructions, some mending, some attachments. I recently have got Bridget, my haunted Singer sewing machine, 99k, and there are a couple of feats in there that I don't know what they are, so that will be helpful. These lovely decorative infilling stitches. That's one of the wonderful things that you get with 1930s clothing, particularly. Less so in the 40s, although you still did get things, but the 30s were very, very much about this sort of applied decoration like these. So this is just a cornucopia of that, making separate cuffs to add to clothes, and here's one for a collar. That looks very lovely, using organza with a cotton. Creates a lovely little look, a little flower there. Tucks, how to do tucks. This particular machine that they're talking about has got an embroidery attachment, but look, you can do machine embroidery. Applique, going to be doing some big applique projects here on the channel and on my Patreon at some point really soon. I really like these as reference points about finishing seams, so run and fell seams and pinked seams, because this is before overlocking was readily available. Machine knitting seam, French seam. Really, really good sound advice here, kind of written in a very unfussy way, and it's basically got everything you need. I am really wanting to try out some decorative faggoting. I think it's such a horrible word, but the what it does, so you can sort of do lace insertion. I'm wondering about clothes that might be maybe a little bit too tight, using this method to kind of add a little bit of room in them. I don't know, but anyway. A chat on good grooming. Their advice here. How can the busy housewife or business girl be well groomed? You can only be either or, my lovelies, you can't be both. How can it be done without additional expense for clothes? One of the first essentials is to dress to your type. Consider whether you are tall or short, slim or plump, angular or not, fair or dark, or just between. A few simple rules will help, but they must not be followed slavishly, because there are always some people who are exceptions, and you may be one of these. I can tell you, my lovely, that you are exceptional, and we don't need to dress to type. I don't adhere to any particular rules myself. There are just colours that I like, styles that I like, and I put them on my body, which is perfect as it is, whatever shape it is, whatever size I am. It's my body and I enjoy living in it. So then there's probably loads of other delightful advice in there, but there's lots of bits about dressmaking, but loads of really helpful patterns for pleats, helpful things to help with your dressmaking, adapting bought patterns. There's some lovely Mildreds here. You can take your measurements, and it's got a little page in here for that. I just love all the illustrations in here. Look, and the sleeves, and then it's got some pattern cutting and so on for you. Shirt blouse. I love that it's called a shirt blouse, not a shirt. A woman wouldn't wear a shirt, she would wear a blouse, you see. This is the rule. A blouse pattern. So a shirt is something that buttons up and a blouse is something that doesn't. But women can wear a shirt blouse rather than a shirt. But how cool is that one? Look at that lovely little blouse. Look at this little bolero. Fabulous little drawing there. Really beautifully rendered. Look, a little bit of decorative gubbins going on. And here is lovely Mildred in her simple dress with her really beautifully drawn little bouquet of flowers. I would like to be wafting around like this, please. Thank you very much. And I've got my blocks, so maybe I can follow these instructions and make something like this, because that is so cute. An evening dress. As you know, my lovelies, I attend many galas and charity dues, functions, white tie events, etc. I really don't. I sit in front of the TV of an evening knitting, watching Dracula films. But when I live my fantasy life, I have need of a dress like this. Loving this Bertha collar here. My Benina sewing machine's called Bertha. Maybe I need to make one of these so that I can sit at Bertha in my Bertha collar. That's pretty fab. And more collars and so on. Modelling on the stand. What to do with sleeves, should you not know, but lots of lovely details. I particularly love this about the 30s, that you've got sort of tucks and angles and all sorts, and all these lovely finishes on sleeves and decorative ways in which to finish edges and so on. Just really very lovely. A faced sleeve with lots of top stitching. I've used that on my Junebug jacket actually, and coat. Hems and decorative hems and bound hems and just everything you could need. A circular hem. One of the things that I find really interesting actually is when you look in a lot of old garments from this time, the 20s, 30s and 40s, there's this thing now with clothing and dressmaking where your hem has to be flat, even if it's sort of on a rounded edge or something, but actually that was not the case. So I quite often finish things like this, and I've been told quite a few times that I've done it wrong because it should be flat, but no, it should not. That is a perfectly legitimate historical way of finishing the garment. And I always think that, you know, whatever happens, as long as you're happy in your thing that you've made, it really doesn't matter whether it's proper or whatever. If you feel joy when you put the thing on, then that's all that matters. Look, embroidered hems, so lovely, scalloped edges, all sorts of goodness here. This is very pretty. Look, a shaped yoke. I feel that this could end up being a very long video. Really love this. Look, shaped edging, faggot stitched rouleau. Bit of a mouthful that. But yeah, doing this bias binding and creating this effect. Really fab. And even though there's only a couple of pictures, it still sort of communicates it really beautifully. And then we've got sort of different edges, braid and embroidery. I really love this shell edging for my project lingerie. I want to give this a go at some point. Putting in zip fastener, 2 Ps. At this time, zips were still called lightning fasteners. And I don't know, I suppose the zip name was developed because of the sound that the device makes. I did a whole talk on this, fashion history and culture talk, about the development of zips and how they've been used in fashion way back in January 2022 over on my Patreon. So if you like stuff like this and hearing me talk about historical stuff, that is the place to hang out. Lovely collar here, look, that's just really beautiful. And more collars, decorative collars, often detachable. Oh look, detachable collar, because you might not have lots of different dresses, but you could make lots of different cuffs and collars to add to the one dress and completely change up the look of it, which is a genius idea. Loving the sort of the butterfly yoke. You see this in a lot of knitwear of the time as well. Just fantastic. I am just so thrilled with this book. How to gather things, over gather, making buttons and a bound buttonhole. Buttonholes and sewing are like my least favourite job to do in sewing. And I just hate doing machine buttons and buttonholes and so on. I always seem to make boo-boos with it. It doesn't matter that I've been sewing for a very long time, but I don't know, it's one of those, I'm never happy with the finish, so maybe a worked buttonhole, hand buttonholes and a bound buttonhole might solve that particular problem for me. One of the things that I really love about these older books as well is there's a huge amount of information about pressing and how to use pressing to help you and shrink bits and mould the fabric, and that's why you just get this much better fit with the vintage garments. You know, they're beautifully constructed, and then all of this sort of thing has been taken into account. It's still done now in couture. That's it's kind of the skills for couture are grounded in this very traditional dressmaking, which I really love and find really useful, because you just don't cover it. Not at fashion school anymore. When I did my degree, there was nothing about that, and books now just don't really have much info about those very clever little bits of magic that just amplify your home dressmaking. Lots of passementerie type, decorative type things, so that you've just got a million options. Gauging or shearing, that's been very, very popular of late. I'm going to be making a sheared dress. Maybe if you are interested, I will share that with you. And I'm actually also making a lovely dress for one of my clients. It's copying a 1920s dress for her wedding, and it's actually got smocked velvet on it, so this is quite useful. After all the dressmaking sewing info, every technique you could possibly need, we've got simple tailoring, and it tells you sort of the first steps, useful hints and so on, patterns, got some instructions, quite basic instructions, but have a look at those. But this right here makes my heart leap out of my chest. An embroidered coat, so the attractive little coat illustrated here as it would appear if made up as suggested above and embroidered in a flowing design of leaves. This sort of makes me think of trapunto, a technique that I'm really obsessed with. Did a whole thing on Patreon about trapunto, Italian quilting. But I really love these little jackets, and I know that I need some jackets in my life, and I am going to be making something like this to go with some wide leg trousers. And yeah, really love the little pockets there, so I'm going to be making that. Would you like to see that as a project here on the channel? Do let me know in the comments below. I'm happy to oblige. I'm not sure if I would make it with like proper tailoring techniques. I want it as a light summer jacket, but it says here, this little peasant style coat will look well in any firm cloth, either wool or cotton. Wool is more practical for general purposes because linen creases so quickly and must be constantly pressed to keep it fresh and crisp. I have so much time in my day to keep things constantly pressed. Blue or black felt embroidered in brightly coloured wools would be ideal. No lining is necessary for felt. That's quite a nice idea. So maybe a black one with long sleeves and embroidery for autumn, winter. Oh. And maybe like a little cotton one with embroidery for summer. Oh, now I immediately want to go and make that. Lovely tips about linings. So that's really useful. Paddings, all of those sorts of things. And then we go on to underwear. Sewing buttons on underwear. So we've got lots of particular ways of doing that and information about the types of buttons that you should use. Really do like linen buttons. You quite often find them at brocantes and so on. And as you know, I am doing project lingerie at the moment, so I'm really pleased to add this to my lingerie resource library, because it's really useful to know. Look, this is really pretty. Lovely night dress. That night dress, I actually do need night dresses, and I am going to be making a bra, but these like little triangle bras are really not enough scaffolding for me because I am rather boobalicious. But I do like this. A dainty suspender belt from net or silk, some knickers. These are sort of more bloomery looking ones. I'm not sure how sexy these would actually be, French knickers, but I've got a pattern for French knickers. But love this, just think it's really gorgeous. A slip one probably for the evening. And then petticoats and pyjamas. Man's pyjamas, because remember, lovelies, that it's your job to provide all of your man's necessaries as well as all your little puddings, all your kiddies. Very important that your man has the shirts and that you make lovely shirts for him. Here it's showing your order of work, because of course there's no other type of gender or relationships or so on. It is man and woman and a boy and a girl child. I say this in jest because we're all sorts of people, and love is love wherever you may find it. Child's petticoats, sewing lingerie, and a Liberty bodice. My aunts and my great aunt, everyone always used to go on about Liberty bodices, and many older schoolgirls need some sort of supporting bodice. Their figures are not quite mature enough to wear a corset, but a close-fitting bodice called a Liberty bodice will be found to serve the purpose. It should be made of strong washable twill, very firmly sewn. I don't know about you, but that does not sound like a party. My aunt always used to go on about wearing vests and things in case you got cold kidneys. I'm not sure what that is. I have failed to do that, and my kidneys seem fine so far. But here we go. Lots of lovely tips and advice for inserting lace. And these make charming decoration for luxury garments. And it kind of gives you lots of tips and tricks there. And how to do all things like this, fancy edging and net edgings and so on. So just brilliant. How to do scallop edgings and embroider those scallops. Then you've got the old pennies to use. You can still use coins actually as a template. No reason why not. Edging, elastic threading, very useful. I always manage to make my elastic too tight. Got a bit of a problem with that. Your gussets, always very helpful. For some reason I thought it said a child's sleeping unit. I don't know why, that isn't what it says quite clearly. But here for your boy child, no mention of girl child. Maybe the girl child is less important, or maybe there's a section a bit later on. Who knows? I was really excited actually about getting this book because it's got all the household mending, lots of info in here about doing that. It's a bit of a lost art, isn't it? We tend to buy things and they disintegrate a bit and we throw them away, but actually you should make your clothes as well as possible. Or if you have a vintagey thing that needs, if you buy a vintage garment that needs a bit of repair, this is going to show you how to do all of this, like woven patches and all sorts. So also mending gloves, bed linen, like all the things in your life that you would care for and try to repair and renovate. And then I also really love this, giving new styles to garments. So do not discard an old coat and skirt. With a little thought and manipulation, it will make a very warm winter dress. So I really love the like renovation, conversions, revamps and so on out of older garments or fabrics or whatever. So yeah, really loved this, and ideas for giving sleeves new style, giving bodices new style, renovating old skirts. And then here, enlarging garments. That was what I was talking about a bit earlier, but I kind of want to put like spangly what's it stuff in, whereas this is slightly more practical. And then how to clone clothes, taking patterns from made up garments. I'm assuming they're sort of taking things apart a little bit. Cutting down for children's garments. Here we go, look, you've got a, whatever this is, and then they've created these little garments. That looks quite creative, doesn't it? And enlarging, how you can do that. Removing stains. Probably some of the chemicals they mention are now illegal or no longer available, but I just thought that would be really interesting. And then we go on to the knitting and crochet part. And it's just got some lovely little patterns in here, which I'm thinking about just doing lots of little swatches really to practice, because I'm really bad. If you're a knitter and you watch some of my knitting videos, you'll know that I've found lace knitting to be my nemesis, and I'm determined to get better at it. And maybe doing little practices like this will be really good. But there's lots of little tips and tricks. As I said, I've actually got the knitting one of this, so if you'd like to see me talk through that, then I'd be very happy too. But looking forward to that, and actually just really good advice, like really good tips and advice, really clearly done. I don't know how many times I'm going to say that through this video, do excuse me. But this has also got make your own knitted styles, so it takes you through the process of how you can make your own knitting pattern. As you know, if you're a knitting addict, no other word for it, vintage patterns just only really come in, you know, a standard sort of small bust size, and you as a needlecraft modern woman of the time would be expected to be able to grade up things, and that's not something I can particularly do in vintage knitting patterns. I don't really feel very confident, but maybe after reading some of this I might be able to. Making socks and gloves and so on, so that loads of helpful things. And then crochet. They're obviously not such a fan of crochet, because look, you've got 2 pages there. I'm not sure you're going to master the art of that with just that information. Clearly they were knitting fans and not crochet fans. So we're on to embroidery. Love embroidery. It's not something that I spend much time doing, but I would like to do more. I've got some embroidery stuff going on, embroidery stitches. All of these things you can use to decorate your home, your life, yourself, your man, your child, your cat. When I get my cat will be wearing some vintage inspired attire. I shall be getting a kitten, and I will train them to enjoy such things. Some lovely like little corsages and so on, and more techniques that you can shake a stick at, whatever that phrase means, but it seems very appropriate. Copying designs. There's just so much in this book, isn't there? I mean, it's absolutely redonkulous. Takes you through building up patterns, household furnishings. I really like this section actually. It's got some great stuff about cushions, vintage inspired cushions, and this bit, the chair cover, which I just thought was really, really clear. And I might actually make a cover for my sofa because it is really horrible. I feel like I need to do some rather opulent pleating and lampshades. I've got a little base for a lampshade, so I want to be doing some stuff for the home, and I will of course share that as and when. I'm starting with my dining room, so I'll be taking you through that process. Got lots of fun stuff. Doing your own rugs, which seems like rather a commitment to me. Embroidered rug, but here like a tufted rug. I actually really love those scrap rugs that you see. I can't remember what they're called, but they're very traditional, where you use, rather than wool, like bits of fabric. Latch hook rugs, I think they're called. I bought the gizmo to do it, and I've actually never done it, but I'm kind of feeling that I want to use up every single scrap of fabric that I have, and I might do some kind of rug with that. Not sure when, but I'll obviously get hold of my time machine and make it work for me, or a time turner, either of those things. Send them my way if you have them. Then part 10, we've got miscellaneous, and we're doing leather work now, because you should be able to fashion anything out of anything at any time. Fur work. Fur was a big thing at the time, not problematic now, for understandable reasons. Millinery, so you can make your own hats and so on. Hat linings. Making of tassels and pom-poms. It's called pom-poms rather than pom-poms. Not sure why that is, but very much loving this page because I love a tassel. And then we've got transferring designs to materials, braiding looms. So as if all of that wasn't enough, you now also need to be able to make braiding looms. But really lovely tabby weaving. These are things that I'm not really familiar with, but you can buy these little cards. I used to teach it to my year 7 students at school when I was officially a classroom teacher quite a few years ago now. And marking linen. We all know that we should monogram our underpants, don't we? And our lingerie, just in case we need to know who we are. Sewing hints, we've got more sewing hints. Sewing tape ties to fine materials, not sure why for that, but I'm sure it will become apparent when I look at this in more detail. Turning up hems of thick material. There's just so much. Marking guides for easy work, so you can make these sort of gauges to make life easier. Making your binding, making cords to add fringing. Mitered corners, which is a really lovely finishing technique actually on garments. It really makes a difference. And then at the end we've got some bows, some hand quilting. Look, save the best till last, a bit of trapunto there. I feel like I need to add grosgrain bows to just all of my clothes now. And then we have the index. So there we are, our little travelling through 1938, the pictorial guide to modern home needlecraft. I strongly urge you to get yourself a copy of this absolute treasure. I hope that you've enjoyed looking at this vintage treasure with me. It really is a delight, and I am working my way through reading all of it. Do let me know your thoughts, and if there's something particular in there that you'd like to know more about or see more of on the channel, then I'm all for it. Your wish is my command. Thank you so much for taking the time to spend the time with me here in my little cottage by the sea on the south coast of England in Hastings. If you have enjoyed your time here and you're not already a subscriber, then I would absolutely love it if you did take a little moment to hit that subscribe button. Your support gives me the opportunity to create content like this that hopefully you and other kindred spirits will enjoy. I hope that wherever you are in the world, my lovelies, you're keeping safe and well. Till next time. Bye.